Good morning, everyone. We're gathered here today on the territory of the Coast Salish, including the Kwantlen, the Katesi, and the Semiahmoo. And I want to welcome the Premier of the province, John Horgan, back into Surrey. And he was here last week with some great news, and he is here again. And John knows how critical services are for British Columbians. For 16 long years under the Liberal government, we saw Surrey being neglected. We saw the people of British Columbia being neglected. And we saw our seniors being neglected. We saw the damage that was done to the long-term care and to the services that were available for our seniors. And over the last 3 years, we have done lots. Lots of work has been done to improve care for seniors. And I'm very, very proud of the work that the government has done. So while the Liberals were focused on giving tax breaks to the very rich, to the top 2%, I'm very proud to have been a member of a government, a team that was focused on delivering services to everyone and having a balanced approach. And as our Premier often says, you know, it is about the people. It is about the people, and we are all stronger when we support each other. And we know that our seniors have built this province. They have worked hard. And each and every one of us has a responsibility to make sure that as they enter their golden years and the years even later than that, that they get the support they need. So today we have here the Premier and my good friend John Horgan, who is going to be talking to us about seniors, and I'm sure he has an announcement to make, and that will make life better for those who need care in their latter years. And I will say this, John, we love to have you in Surrey, visit more often, and the people of British Columbia, and especially those in Surrey, as I talk to them, they tell me that you have done an awesome job. And you know something? I agree with them. So, John Horgan.
Thanks, Jinny. It's great to be back in Surrey here on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. I'm joined with two of my friends and colleagues, Mike Starchuk, who's our candidate in Surrey Cloverdale, and Rashna Singh, who's our candidate in Surrey Green Timbers. And I know, Jinny, that Surrey Panorama has never had better representation than the time they've had you as their MLA. And of course, you were also a former member of Parliament. I want to thank the people that are joining us here today, people who work in the seniors care sector, people who are dependent on the work in that sector. British Columbians have been through a lot over the past 7 months. The pandemic has highlighted for all of us the challenges of delivering services at a critical time in our history. British Columbians have done a great job together in bending the curve and leading the country in our response to COVID-19. And that's been a direct result of frontline workers who have been focusing on not just themselves, as many of us have done, but focusing on others as well. Caregivers are fundamental to our success, and I'm so proud of the work that they've done, not just over the past 7 months, but over the past 20 years. And I want to take you back to 2001, when the BC Liberals formed a government and immediately slashed taxes for the wealthy and the well-connected. The consequences of those tax reductions were massive reductions in services for people, and nowhere was that more evident than in care for seniors. The BC Liberals put in place a standard of the number of hours that should be given and devoted to the care for seniors in long-term care facilities, and over 17 years, they never met their own standard. In fact, when we formed government in 2017, 9 out of 10 care homes in British Columbia were not meeting the minimal standard that the BC Liberals had put in place. And it was a direct result of the choices that they made. Choices as a government to focus on those who were doing okay and leaving those that were not to fend for themselves. In long-term care facilities, employees were fired, their wages were cut by 15%, and because of the system that was put in place by the BC Liberals, workers had to reapply for their jobs every time a contract for the delivery of the service was renewed. That's outrageous, it's unacceptable, and it led to profound impacts that came home to roost during COVID-19. The outbreaks in seniors' care facilities at the beginning of the pandemic were a direct result of BC Liberal choices, a direct result of their decision to reduce the number of dollars that you could make when you worked in the sector. What's more important for our seniors than having someone care for them in their latter years? Many workers had to work in more than one location. Our first step when the pandemic hit was to eliminate that, raise the wages of our frontline workers, and make sure that if you were working in a long-term care facility, you only had to show up at one place, not multiple places. That restricted the spread of the disease and made British Columbia the envy of Canada. I participate every week in conference calls with premiers across the country. And when I heard the stories of the challenges in Quebec and in Ontario, I looked at the frontline workers here in British Columbia, the people behind me, who were sacrificing their well-being to help those who needed help most. In Quebec, the federal government had to send in the army to help people in long-term care. Fortunately, we didn't have to do that. And we've been working hard to make sure that the future for seniors is brighter than the most recent past. And today I'm happy to announce that in 2021, British Columbia will start building new long-term care facilities, making sure that private operators are giving the care that they deserve, that seniors deserve, by meeting new requirements in order to get the public resources that we send to them. We're going to increase wages for workers in the sector so that they can go to work confident that they're going to be able to feed their families. And of course, the most important thing I want to say to you today, we're going to put in place a 10-year plan, a $1.4 billion capital spend so that we can eliminate multi-room facilities in British Columbia. I believe seniors in their latter years should have the dignity of one room with just them in it. That's a goal we're going to set. It's going to take us some time to make up for the backlog because of Liberal neglect, but I believe that's a cause worth fighting for. I believe we need to also make sure that when we build those facilities with the diverse populations that we have in British Columbia, that our seniors care facilities are culturally sensitive. We did groundbreaking work, Minister Dix and the people at PICS, that's a service that's provided here in the Fraser Health Authority, so that we are building a culturally sensitive long-term care facility for the South Asian population so they can get foods that they're familiar with, they can hear music that they understand, and they can engage with staff that speak their language. These are critically important issues at a time when you're looking at the end of life for many, many people in British Columbia. Our long-term care facilities should be state-of-the-art. They should be well-staffed with people who are happy to come to work because they're getting a fair wage and they can support their families. These things sound pretty basic to me as I say them. I think all British Columbians, when they hear that we're going to improve our long-term care facilities, we're going to give dignity back to seniors, they're saying, well, of course you will. Why haven't you done it already? And it's a result of BC Liberal decisions. Mr. Wilkinson is now saying that he wants to eliminate the provincial sales tax, putting an $8 billion hole in our provincial budget. We need to provide services for people now more than ever. BC Liberal choices in 2001 led to devastation in our long-term care sector. Another turn back to the past with Andrew Wilkinson will put us in the same position. I'm encouraging people today to consider long-term care, consider your seniors, consider your grandparents, and let's vote for making their lives better. Let's vote NDP on the 24th of October. Thank you very much for your time today. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, everyone. To media on the line, please press *1 to enter the queue. For media that are here in person, there is a microphone. Please line up at a safe distance. And we're going to start with a question from John Woodward.
Hi there. Thanks for having us. I have two questions. I guess the first one is the cost of this venture. We haven't heard how much you're promising to spend on this.
$1.4 billion over 10 years.
Another question is on a slightly different subject from Penny Daflos, which is about a former candidate, somebody who wanted to be, again, named candidate in Vancouver Falls Creek's Morgane Origier, who was posted apparently proudly brandishing a photo that said, excuse the language, fuck the police. So we wanted to know what your position on that is. Is that something that a public figure should be promoting?
Well, that's certainly not my position, John. And I know Morgane. I know her to be a passionate woman who's focused on increasing the well-being of people in vulnerable situations. She's certainly entitled to her opinion. She's not our candidate in Vancouver Falls Creek. Brenda Bailey is. I'm excited about her candidacy, and I look forward to winning Vancouver Falls Creek in the coming election.
Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go to a question from Justin McElroy.
Hi, John. A question this morning in advance of urban mayors across British Columbia holding a press conference. They're calling for more stable funding for badly needed transit projects. Will your government commit to that? And if not, what is your plan?
We certainly will. I worked tirelessly with the federal government to make sure that we could replace the lost revenues at the fare box at the start of the pandemic, when we saw a drastic decline in users getting on our buses, our transit lines across British Columbia. We're matching federal dollars to make sure that we can keep BC Transit and TransLink as solvent as we possibly can as we see ridership come back up. So that's on the operating side, critically important, making sure people kept their jobs, making sure people still had access to public transit so they could get to their places of employment. Mostly, of course, at that time, frontline workers, whether they be working in our grocery stores, whether they be working in long-term care or our acute care system. So I'm passionate about public transit. I'm a transit user when I'm in the Lower Mainland, and certainly I used to hold town hall meetings on the number 61 bus from downtown to Souk in my constituency. I believe transit is vital to our long-term sustainability when it comes to climate action, and it's also a better way to move people around. With respect to the capital projects, we are going to be redoubling our efforts to focus on building more transit. We're already announcing just a couple of weeks ago the contract to build the extension of the Broadway line out to Arbutus. The work here in Surrey has been delayed because of the municipal election. We had a plan fully funded to do light rapid transit through Surrey. The new council decided that they were more supportive of SkyTrain, so we're listening to the communities, we're listening to the Mayor's Council, and once they come forward with their SkyTrain plan, we'll be fully funding that to build more transit so we can get people out of their cars and to work faster.
Do you have a follow-up, Justin?
I do. Today is Orange Shirt Day. I'm wondering what your government has done and would do in the future to better protect First Nation youth and government care.
Well, we have Mary-Ellen Trepel-Lafond is doing a review of our acute care facilities and some of the challenges and allegations that were made about racism in our emergency rooms. I look forward to Mary-Ellen Trepel-Lafond's report in that regard. I know Minister Dix, Adrian, has been working on ensuring that any discrimination or racism that's found in our acute care and our long-term care facilities is immediately put to rest, and we are always encouraging people to recognize and acknowledge that the diversity of British Columbia is what makes us special. Thousands of years of Indigenous tradition and culture added on to that, the diversity of people from around the world. I'm myself the son of an immigrant, and that's what's made British Columbia so extraordinary. The people who were here when we arrived and all those have come since, and those who will come into the future. I'm very confident that we can do our level best to manage those issues. When it comes to Orange Shirt Day, I will be going out to the Musqueam Centre to meet with Indigenous leaders there, but I wouldn't mind. In fact, I want to tell a story of visiting a place called Lower Post. Lower Post, if you look on a map, is about this far away from the Yukon border. I don't know how many kilometers, a lot. You can't get there unless you go through Whitehorse. And I was invited by the Kaska, the Tlingit, and the Tahltan to visit their territory because the residue, the last remnants of the residential school in Lower Post was still there. And sadly, the Kaska had to have lived through the indignity of keeping that building as their administration building. The federal government refused to tear it down and build a new one because they declared it to be a serviceable building. I visited that building and I went into the basement with elders. And one of the elders pointed to a door in the corner. The second elder could not come down the stairs. And he pointed at the door and he said, "That's where we used to get raped." And for the government today, in 2020, to refuse to tear down that building and build something that the community could be proud in is a stain on all of our history. The federal government has turned around that view. I've been relatively aggressive on this. I think I'm understating that. But we have the support of the federal government. That building will be torn down and a new one will be built. And it's symbolism like that that helps relieve the pain that so many Indigenous people live with in this province. It's a small step, but it's a symbolic step, and I'm proud that we're taking it together.
Thank you. Our next question is from Rob Shaw.
Well, hi, Premier. Just wanted some more details on this seniors plan. I think the government right now is paying long-term care workers, I think it's more than $10 million a month to top up their salary so they can work at one facility and not multiple facilities. Is that the level up that you're promising in this plan to continue even after the pandemic ends?
That's correct. We'll have more details in our platform that'll be released in the days ahead. But we've learned graphically through the pandemic the damage that was done when a government chose to give money back to those who had enough and taking it away from those that did not have enough. The largest firing of women in North American history was undertaken by the BC Liberals when they decimated the long-term care sector. I believe that our seniors deserve better than that. I believe the people that work in the sector deserve better than that, and that's what we're committing to today.
Rob, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thanks. Can you shed any light on the new requirements for the private operators? And also, can you just talk a bit about the vision for long-term seniors care? We have a number of private operators right now. You're calling on building more public homes. What is the long-term vision for that in your mind? Is this a more public-run facilities and phase out the private operators, or maybe speak a bit about that?
Sure. This is not unlike the childcare sector. We need private operators, and we also need to redouble our efforts to create more public spaces, whether it be for childcare, whether it be for long-term care. I believe there can be a healthy mix, but those that are in the business for profit need to make sure that they're meeting minimum standards, and that money that is transferred from the public to private providers need to come with certain standards. And that'll be laid out in our platform when it comes out in the next number of days.
Next question is from Tom Fletcher.
John, today's the deadline for $6 billion in deferred sales tax, carbon tax, and hotel tax collected by business. What impact do you expect that to have?
Well, we felt that the deferral was critically important to make sure that small businesses had liquidity, but you'll know that small businesses are collecting those taxes from consumers. They're not supposed to spend it, they're supposed to hold it and then remit it to government. The objective of deferring that was to not put another burden on to small businesses to do their regular remittances. The money is there, the money will be transferred. The objective was to take the pressure off businesses, and I think we accomplished that.
Do you have a follow-up, Tom?
Yes. Employer health tax payments did get a further deferral. Why that one and not the other ones?
Well, again, because the employer's health tax is a remittance, it's a payroll tax. The PST, the carbon taxes are taxes that are collected directly from consumers. Those are taxes that consumers pay. The employer health tax is a tax that employers pay.
Our next question is from Richard Zisman.
Just to the point that Rob was making, I'm just curious, is this a long-term commitment to the single-site policy? Is that what, if an NDP government is reelected, we should expect a single-site policy to remain intact for the unforeseen future?
That's correct. We believe that the policies of the past put us in a dire situation and led to the loss of many lives through the COVID process, or the COVID crisis. We believe now is the time to correct that wrong and to make sure that we're going forward with the focus on making sure seniors get the care they deserve and the people that work in the sector get respect and a living wage.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Are you concerned about allegations of elections fraud going on in Surrey Fleetwood?
Well, I'm always concerned when people try to play the system. I'm proud that British Columbians are anxious to vote. I'm proud that over 400,000 people have already requested mail-in ballots so they can participate in this election campaign. The allegations, as I understand it, will be thoroughly investigated by Elections BC, and that's as it should be. But I'm confident going forward that British Columbians can have faith in the system that we have in place in British Columbia, and we'll have a fair and free election. But Elections BC is responsible for investigations, and they can speak for themselves.
Our next question is from Jennifer Saltman.
My question was just answered. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go next to Sean Eckford.
Thank you. Mr. Horgan, you may recall during the 2017 campaign here in Powell River Sunshine Coast, the issue of two of our health authority-owned long-term care centers being closed and replaced by a privately run one was quite prominent. We are now, it looks like, moving forward with the privately run facility, but there's still going to be a shortage of long-term care rooms in the coast. Will this $1.4 billion be eligible to rehabilitate some of the public facilities that might be slated for closure, and will there be an emphasis on helping rural areas?
Absolutely. We put in place a rural, remote, and Indigenous community plan in the middle of the pandemic to make sure we were providing the services that rural and remote communities need. If they need to get out of those smaller towns and into bigger acute care facilities, we're putting the resources on the table to do that. With respect to the situation on the Sunshine Coast, I know Nick Simons and Adrian Dix worked very closely with the community to get a good understanding of the challenges that they face with respect to the aging homes and the privatized one that the BC Liberals were putting into play in the community. I know that Adrian and Nick will continue to work to make sure that the service delivery is a high quality and that the people in the Sunshine Coast get the seniors care they deserve.
Do you have a follow-up, Sean?
Just a quick one. With respect to that situation, one of the issues was a contract that could not be reopened. When you're looking at new requirements for private care operators, will that involve possibly revisiting some of the contracts they have with health authorities?
We're talking about operating dollars, and those contracts are renewed regularly. I know some of the healthcare workers with us today could talk about the impact of contract flipping. Whenever a contract for delivery of service comes up for renewal, in many cases, employees had to reapply for their jobs that they'd held for 5, 10, and 15 years. That makes no sense at all. There's no continuity of care for our aging population, and of course it's destabilizing for families that work in the sector. We are going to continue to abide by contracts. I'm not at all going to advocate that we rip anything up, but renegotiations happen all the time, and part and parcel of our plan is to make sure we're focusing public dollars as much as we can on delivering quality service for people, and we'll continue to maintain that principle as we go forward.
Our next question is from Andrew McLeod.
Yeah, hi, Mr. Horgan. Just on long-term care, the $1.4 billion you're talking about, you're saying over 10 years. I'm wondering if you have a timeline in mind, and also if you could just clarify, will that be available at all to private operators, or is that entirely for publicly owned facilities?
We'll have more details on that in our platform as it comes out in the days ahead, Andrew. But what I can tell you is that we want to invigorate the sector. We have already the largest capital spending plan in BC history, building schools, building hospitals, SkyTrain, transit systems, bridges, roads. We're adding on to that. Also housing. BC Housing's budget is the largest it's ever been. So this is another big chunk of dollars that will help stimulate economic activity, create jobs, and most importantly, provide the dignity that our seniors need and deserve.
Do you have a follow-up, Andrew?
Yeah, sure. As I'm sure you're aware, the BCGU has been campaigning to get private operators out of the sector entirely. I know you've talked about the need or your view that there should be a mix available. I'm wondering what kind of feedback you may have heard from the union on the plan you're announcing today.
Well, I haven't had any feedback on it at all. We're developing our platform as a political party, laying it out for voters to make choices. And the choices in this election could not be clearer. Do we want to stay on the track that we're on to make sure that we're providing services for people in an equitable way across the board in every community? Or do we want to go back to a time where the wealthy and the well-connected call the shots? They get the breaks at the expense of everybody else. That's the choice that British Columbians have. It couldn't be clearer, in my opinion.
We have time for one more, and that will be from Binder Sajan.
Hi, John. So this morning on the CTV morning show, mail-in ballots and blank ballots, and you actually said that people could write in the party leader name, but that's actually
incorrect.
Not true. And
That's
I'm wondering, if you're not sure how this process works, how confident are you that, the hundreds of thousands of British Columbians who are getting a blank ballot will get it right?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to correct my misspeak this morning. You can write in the name of the candidate in your community or the political party, not the leader, and I appreciate the opportunity to correct that. But I am quite confident that people have gone online, they found the right box to click on. That in itself sometimes can be a challenge. It is quite easy, but I know I get confused often when I'm looking at a screen looking for the right box to click. 400,000 British Columbians have figured it out. The ballots are coming to them or have already arrived. The information and the directions are very clear. I don't have a package. I'm going to be voting in advance polls, so I misspoke this morning. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to correct that.
Thank you, everyone. That's all the time we have.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.